The blur tool blurs out or makes fuzzy where it is applied to the canvas. So you can see here, this minion is before the blur tool. And right here, this is where the blur tool was applied, and this is after it was applied. So the blur tool is a great tool for touching up photos, smoothing out skin tones, and also playing with depth of field. Depth of field is a photography term used to describe how close an object is in a photograph based on how clear it is versus how far it is because it is blurry. So you can see in this example here, here's the depth of field, and right here it's clear, and then the blur tool was applied up here and below so that it makes this out of focus. When we're talking about depth of field, you have to remember that there's different types of depth of field. Depth of field helps the viewer focus on the focal point and adds depth to the artwork. There are two types of depth of field. Shallow depth of field, the front object is in focus and the background is out of focus. So this would be like your portrait mode on the iPhone 10 or the 8 Plus, where it has, so the shallow depth of field right here, our astronaut is in focus and the background is blurry. Or you could have deep depth of field where the background is more in focus than the front object. So over here, our astronaut is not in focus and the background is in focus. With the blur tool, you can force the depth of field and blur out the background to give your Photoshop document a shallow depth of field, or you can blur out the front object to the document to increase a deep depth of field. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose my Agnes layer right here, and I'm going to zoom in on Agnes. And I have Agnes and the Eiffel Tower on two separate layers, so that makes this super easy to do. So I'm going to choose my blur tool over here. Now when you're using the blur tool, make sure that it's in normal mode up here. And for this example, I'm going to turn the strength all the way up. And I'm going to bring, I'm going to use this brush right here, this middle, the second one over, the hard round brush. And I have it at 94 pixels. So make sure that your options bar looks exactly like this. Make sure that you have the correct layer selected. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw on Agnes's face, and you can see her eyes start to become blurry right here. And as I draw more, she becomes blurry. So that's how you would use the blur tool. So I'm going to hit Command Z so that you can see what that looks like. So here's without the blur tool applied, and this is with the blur tool applied.